The village of Eama was a place of tradition and quiet beauty. It was a world where life moved slowly and predictably. Among the villagers, Ada was known for her radiant beauty and her strength of character. Her skin glistened like the sun-kissed earth after a rain, and her eyes, deep and warm, sparkled with a quiet fire. She moved through the village with grace, her presence commanding attention without trying. Despite the simplicity of her life, Ada carried herself with a dignity that set her apart. The villagers admired her, not just for her looks but for her humility and resilience. She found joy in the little things, the way the wind rustled through the trees, the songs of the birds at dawn, and the laughter of the children playing in the fields. Yet, beneath her calm exterior, Ada yearned for something more. She dreamed of a life filled with love and adventure, a life beyond the boundaries of Eama. Prince Eama, the heir to the throne of Eama, lived a life of luxury and privilege. His every need was catered to, and he was surrounded by wealth and power. Yet, for all that he had, Eama felt a deep sense of emptiness. He was admired by the people for his wisdom and strength, but the weight of his responsibilities pressed down on him like a heavy cloak. Tradition dictated his every move, and his future had been mapped out since birth. He was expected to marry a noblewoman, to rule the village with an iron fist, and to continue the legacy of his ancestors. But Eama longed for something different, something real. He often wandered through the village in disguise, observing the lives of the common people, wondering what it would be like to live a life free from the chains of royalty. In his heart, he craved a connection that went beyond duty, a love that was pure, untainted by expectations. Their meeting was one of destiny, a moment that changed everything. There was no grand introduction, no elaborate courtship. It simply happened, like a spark igniting a flame. From the moment their eyes met, they were drawn to each other, as if some invisible force was pulling them together. The connection between them was immediate and undeniable, a bond that transcended the boundaries of their worlds. For Eama, Ada represented everything he had been searching for: freedom, joy, and a love that was real. For Ada, Eama was the answer to the longing in her heart, the fulfillment of dreams she had never dared to speak aloud. Their love blossomed in secret, hidden from the prying eyes of the village and the palace alike. In those quiet moments they stole away together, they found a happiness they had never known. It was a love that was pure and true, a love that defied the rules of their world. The love between Ada and Eama was powerful, but it was also dangerous. The laws of Eama were strict and unforgiving, especially when it came to matters of the royal family. A prince could never marry a commoner, no matter how deep their love. The traditions of the land were clear, and they left no room for exceptions. For Ada, the consequences of their love were even more severe. The ancient laws decreed that any commoner who defiled herself with a member of the royal family would face the ultimate punishment, execution. Ada knew the risks, but her love for Eama was stronger than her fear. She believed in the power of their love, convinced that it could overcome anything, even the rigid traditions of their people. But the whispers of their secret meetings began to spread through the village, and soon, the truth could no longer be hidden. Their love had set them on a path that could lead to destruction. The village of Eama was small, and secrets never stayed hidden for long. The whispers of Ada and Eama's forbidden love spread like wildfire, igniting the curiosity and judgment of the villagers. The elders of the council, the keepers of tradition, were quick to act. They were the guardians of the ancient laws, and they could not allow such a blatant defiance to go unpunished. The punishment for Ada's transgression was clear and unyielding: she was to be captured and executed at dawn. The news struck fear into the hearts of those who loved her, but no one dared to speak against the ruling. The laws were sacred, passed down through generations, and to defy them would be to defy the very fabric of their society. For Ada, the future seemed bleak. She knew that there was no escape from the fate that awaited her. But even in the face of death, she did not regret the love she had found. When the news reached Eama, he was overcome with a mixture of fear and rage. He could not lose Ada, not like this. His love for her was stronger than any tradition, stronger than any law. He knew that there was only one way to save her. He had to flee with her, leaving behind his birthright, his people, and the life he had always known. It was a decision that weighed heavily on him, but in the end, love won out. Late in the night, he arrived at Ada's hut, his heart pounding in his chest. The village was quiet, the stars twinkling above as if unaware of the turmoil below. Eama shook Ada awake, his voice urgent but soft. "We must leave, Ada. Now. They are coming for you." There was no time for hesitation, no time for doubt. Ada trusted Eama completely, and without a word, she gathered a few belongings. Together, they fled into the night, their only thought to escape the doom that awaited them. The journey was long and treacherous. They ran through the forest, their footsteps muffled by the soft earth beneath them. The darkness was their ally, hiding them from the eyes of the village guards who would soon be on their trail. But it was also their enemy, concealing the dangers that lurked in the shadows. Every rustle of the leaves, every snap of a twig sent their hearts racing, but they did not stop. For days, they traveled, moving further and further away from Eama, crossing rivers and climbing mountains in their desperate bid for freedom. Exhaustion weighed on them, but their love gave them the strength to keep going. They knew that they could not stop, not until they had put enough distance between themselves and the village. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they reached the city, a place where no one knew their names or their past. In the chaos of the urban life, they found refuge. Here, they were safe. Here, they were free. Life in the city was different from anything they had known. The bustling streets, the constant noise, the endless sea of faces, it was overwhelming at first, but it was also liberating. They were no longer bound by the traditions of Eama, no longer defined by their roles as prince and commoner. In this new world, they could be whoever they wanted to be. Eama found work as a trader, using the skills he had learned in the palace to build a modest business. Ada, with her natural grace and creativity, became a seamstress, quickly gaining a reputation for her exquisite designs. They worked tirelessly, saving every penny, determined to build a life together. It wasn't easy, but they had each other, and that was enough. Over time, their business grew, and with it, their dreams began to take shape. They had left everything behind, but in doing so, they had found something even more precious: freedom and love. Years passed, and their love only grew stronger. The hardships they had faced together had forged a bond that could not be broken. They had built a life they were proud of, a life that was their own. And finally, after years of struggle and sacrifice, they were able to afford a modest wedding ceremony. It wasn't the grand royal affair that might have awaited them in Eama, but it was perfect in its simplicity. Under the golden rays of the setting sun, surrounded by new friends and well-wishers, Eama and Ada exchanged vows. There were no crowns, no titles, no expectations, just two people who had chosen each other, who had fought for their love and won. As they stood hand in hand, looking out over the life they had built, they knew that they had found something far more valuable than any throne. They had found a love that had defied the odds, a love that had survived even the darkest of times. But the past was never truly forgotten. One day, a letter arrived at their door, carried by a messenger from Eama. The sight of the familiar seal sent a shiver down Eama's spine. It was a letter from his younger brother, now the king of Eama. The words inside spoke of forgiveness and reconciliation. The old king, their father, had passed away, and with him, the ancient laws that had once governed the land. The new king invited Eama and Ada to return to the village, to reclaim their place in the royal family if they so wished. The letter was both a relief and a burden. They had found peace in the city, but the call of home was strong. For days, they pondered the decision. Returning to Eama meant facing the memories of a life they had left behind, but it also meant the possibility of healing old wounds. The decision to return to Eama weighed heavily on both Ada and Abina. The city had become their sanctuary, a place where they had forged new identities and a life free from the constraints of tradition. Yet, the thought of returning to the village stirred a longing in their hearts. Eama was not just a place, it was part of who they were. The memories of their old life, the people they had left behind, and the land that had shaped them called to them like a distant echo. The letter from Abina's brother, now the king, spoke of change and progress. The ancient laws that had once kept them apart were no more, replaced by a new era of acceptance and openness. Ada and Abina knew that this was not just about their past, it was about their future, about the possibility of healing old wounds and building a bridge between the world they had left behind and the one they had created for themselves. After much deliberation, they made the difficult decision to return to Eama. It wasn't an easy choice, but they knew that facing their past was necessary for their future. The journey back to the village felt different this time. The fear and uncertainty that had accompanied their first departure were replaced by a sense of hope and anticipation. As they approached the familiar hills and forests of Eama, memories flooded back, both good and bad. But they were no longer the same people who had fled in the dead of night. They had grown stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Together, they had faced challenges that had tested their love, and they had emerged victorious. Now, as they crossed the boundary into the village, hand in hand, they were ready to face whatever awaited them. They had each other, and that was all that mattered. Whatever the future held, they would face it together, just as they always had.